Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sree Iyer. Today I have the pleasure of Abhijit Iyer-Mitra's company. Abhijit, welcome to PGurus channel.
Joy Ma Durga, and may the blessings of Ma Durga be on all our viewers.
Thank you, and there will be blessings from not just Ma Durga but Jai Krishna because of Narkasur Vadha and so on and so forth. So we've had some very eventful times just pass us. Abhijit, I have a question for you. The US election has completed. The results are still out, but it is slowly trending. It's becoming more and more apparent that Biden will eventually be the president of United States, and that the Democrats will have control of the House, but Senate could be either way. It could be a tie, and Vice President Kamala Harris would be the one who will be casting the deciding vote. It is possible for that to happen. We don't know, and we will not know that until maybe middle of January, because you have to have a rerun of two Senate seats, both in Georgia, which are horribly locked, very, very close. So we have to see. Until then, we don't know. At this time, the Senate is led by the Republicans between now and January. Now, how do you see in a Biden presidency things happening between US and Iran, and then afterwards US and Pakistan/China?
So one of the things that Biden is going to want to move very rapidly towards is to reenact the JCPOA, the so-called nuclear deal with Obama's nuclear deal with Iran. The point, however, is Trump has tied in so many regional alliances into the alienation of Iran. See, it was what he did to Iran that brought about the Abraham Accords and the normalization of ties between Saudi Arabia and Israel, UAE and Israel, Bahrain and Israel, and much earlier, of course, also Oman and Israel. So for him now to go around and say we're going to bring Iran back in from the cold is going to mean a whole set of different things. First, you run up against Erdogan, because remember, Iran is fighting Turkey in Syria. Turkey supports the Sunni factions. Iran supports the Shia and Alawite factions, number one. Then you have to run up against Netanyahu, the entire Gulf monarchies except Qatar. How are you going to do that? So, it's not going to be so immediate. He's going to start taking the steps. Let's see how it goes, because I think that would be his great undoing. The amount of damage these funders, and let's face it, Netanyahu can play a much better game in DC than most DC politicians can. We saw that, remember, when Obama had basically blackballed and blacklisted the Israelis, in fact, stopped intelligence sharing with them and started spying on them from the British base in Cyprus. Netanyahu played his cards very, very well. They just hunkered down and weathered it out. They didn't double over and collapse the way, say, India would, for example, under similar circumstances. So he's very good at this, and I'm sure between Israeli tactics and Saudi money, what they do in DC will damage Biden quite significantly if he tries any major stunt on Iran. Pakistan and China are slightly different. Let's not forget Biden is compromised to China. We've seen the emails, the amount of money that his son made from China. We don't know what else is there, because the Chinese are very good at these traps. They first put you into deals and then they know exactly how to compromise you through those deals. So we don't know what's there. What you're going to see with Biden, again like with Iran, is going to be salami slicing. It will be gradual. It won't be something cumulatively that happens overnight. It will happen slowly over a period of time. For example, with Obama, what happened was Obama first started up with this concept of G2, where instead of the USA and USSR, it would be the USA and the People's Republic of China, PRC, and everybody else. It was basically a Cold War style division into spheres of influence. Not exactly, but I mean, for ease of understanding, that's what it was. Then what happened was, when everybody got upset, he decided to come up with the Asian pivot. And the Asian pivot was just in paper. Okay. On in practical terms, it meant nothing, quite the reverse. You'll actually see that if you explain the pivot out, it actually involved a withdrawal of American troops to over 1,000 kilometers away from China, giving China more strategic space, which every
And which
idiot.
area was this geographically?
South China Sea, South
Okay,
China Sea,
okay.
basically, South and East China Sea. You'd actually see a withdrawal of the US, which every Tom, Dick, and Harry, because this is how it's the way Modi chooses bureaucrats. Sir, very good bureaucrats, sir, very good bureaucrats, sir. Like that. Everybody says good deal, good deal, good deal. Everybody believes it's a good deal without looking at the nitty-gritty. And the focus always remained on Russia and Europe. Now, remember, Biden has also said Russia is an adversary, China is just a competitor. So you know exactly where this is going to go. More European focus. There'll be a lot of talk about China. They'll throw lots of money. They'll throw millions, if not billions of dollars into useless conferences on China, how to deal with China, but nothing will be done on China. Right. Also, remember, in the last presidency, uh, Obama basically kicked Japan under the truck over the Senkaku Daio Islands. He said, that the alliance between Japan and America only comes into force if Japan is attacked, implying that the Daioyu wasn't Japanese territory, right? He also then did that two-way climate change deal with the Chinese, and then said, the same deal is not on offer to you anymore. If you take the deal now, you have to. So the Democrats have a history of being compromised to China, and they have a history of going on giving these slow little crumbs to China, which cumulatively over a period of decades add up to a heck of a lot of money, a heck of a lot of influence, a heck of a lot of geopolitical clout, which nobody in the media will call out because they just love the idea of Democrat presidents. If Biden comes and says the sky is blue and the grass is green, the New York Times will write an editorial saying that is the most profound thing we've heard in the last 50 years of philosophy. This is like, this man is next level. So this is the kind of shit that Democrats get away with. And remember, there's a reason for it, because China has compromised everybody. It's not just Democrat politicians, it's also Republican politicians. It's also the New York Times and Washington Post, that they know they'll get funding from China when they're up in a hard place and need advertisement. So it's in everybody's interests to pass off these things as strong positions on China when they aren't. And it will actually be quite damaging for us. Of course, for the US as well, but because the US has the benefit of distance, it'll hurt us a lot more in the short to medium term. It'll hit us quicker.
Would that be the reason why Modi might agree to do some sort of disengagement with China?
No, look, a disengagement is important for us irrespective. You can't keep having forces bogged down on the China border all the time, right? So disengagement suits us. The issue is what happens from here. Okay, what happens if you have, I don't know, a Guangzhou summit or a Shanghai summit where you end up repeating the same mistakes you did at Wuhan? You can't do that. Like I said, when two world leaders meet, it always undoes 10 years of careful diplomatic spade work. Not that Indian diplomats are very good, but still, I mean, whatever little third-rate spade work that they do also gets undone by when your leaders meet. So I worry about that, number one. Second, I worry about, see, this isn't an end point. This is a starting of a next phase. What do you do with all the other border disputes? For example, in Arunachal, we have satellite imagery that I've published before showing you that the Chinese are about 2-3 kilometers inside Indian territory out there. We don't think it's a permanent this thing, but there's definitely non-permanent roadblocks that were set up by the Chinese over and over again. There's definitely no evidence of camps or habitation or a permanent occupation out there of any sort. That is quite clear. But what happens after that? What are you going to do? What is the systematic solution to prevent this from happening? Infrastructure is one part of it. which is you allow troops to get there. But the Chinese salami tactics mean you need to have something more permanent, like a barbed wire fence or something like that, just clearly demarcating it. But if you do a barbed wire fence, the problem is then you've said that this is the boundary, and China will say, okay, this is the formal boundary, let's settle out here. In which case, you lose all your claims to Aksai Chin and all of that. I personally don't think that that's a bad idea because, de facto, we've lost it. I don't see any time during my lifetime that we're going to get it back. That's not the way the government of India thinks, right? For them, these untenable claims of territory that you've already lost to save face or whatever is important, so they will continue with whatever they're doing. Uh, but again, this is like your classic Indian solution of jugaad. You're fundamentally fixing plugs. You're plugging holes in the wall. You're not rebuilding the wall.
Well, I didn't know that there is an incursion of 2 to 3 kilometers in the Arunachal Pradesh area. What prevents India from doing the same salami tactics approach and go and squat on the other side? Because after all, the LAC is not defined.
What makes you think we don't do that?
Okay. It's a
We do
rhetorical
actually.
question.
The issue is we go on patrols. We haven't had the guts to build infrastructure or annex things or put anything permanent on Chinese territory.
Well, start issuing visas for those people.
That we already do. Like we give visas to Tibetans and all of that. In fact, our level of provocation on that front is probably better than the Chinese level of provocation. The problem is we don't go grab territory permanently the way the Chinese do. Okay, it's all restricted to patrols. And like I've said before, patrols mean nothing. Anybody can patrol over anybody else's territory. You can actually go quite deep into Burma. If you go to Manipur and places like that, you can apparently just drive to Bagan. They don't even really check your visa at the border and things like that, right? So you can go quite deep into Burma, into the heart of Burmese civilization, in fact, without a visa. My friends did it. They went without a visa. They just had a passport. They went right up to Bagan and came back after like a 3-day trek or some 3-day drive. They did it. So, patrols mean nothing. Infrastructure means everything. In Arunachal, we've seen them set up some kind of temporary barriers to mark the border, but they haven't manned those posts. They haven't built any troop centers out there and things like that to mark the post. But it will happen again in Arunachal, and in Arunachal, it will be very difficult to detect because that part, the Indian part, is the rainward area, not the leeward area. So it's extremely wet, it's extremely densely forested, and there's only so much you can see through forest cover. When the forest cover is cleared, it makes for very easy marking. But if they've built something under the forest cover, it becomes virtually impossible to see. Except you can look at the way, because even when tracks are formed on the rainward side, unless they are constantly used, the grass grows back over there, and you can kind of see it disappear in 1 or 2 years. We're not seeing those tracks disappear. We're not seeing those tracks erode, which means that they are constantly under service. And we're not seeing reciprocal tracks from the Indian side up to those same areas, which shows that they're fundamentally in danger. So, like I said, like all things Indian, no systemic solutions. It's all tamasha, rhetorical solutions only to fix, to give you a historical context. And this is my favorite historical context simply because it irritates the living daylights out of everyone, which is Prithviraj Chauhan and the First Battle of Tarain and the Second Battle of Tarain, 1191 and 1192. Mahmud of Ghori is coming. You have no idea about his tactics, his formations, no intelligence on anything. You allow him to come in, you defeat him. But then he's got the fort of, what was it, Ludhiana or Bhatinda or whatever. He takes the fort in 2 weeks. You take almost a year to take that fort back. And after you've defeated him in a very close call battle, you don't even send spies abroad to the court of Ghori to find out what military preparations he's taking on to come back. What are the numbers? What are the sizes? What changes in tactics will he adopt? What language? What did he learn from your tactics? You do nothing, literally nothing. He comes back, and when he comes back, the fort you have taken 1 long year to capture, he literally recaptures it in 2 days, 2 days or 2 weeks again. What does that show you? That's very symptomatic of the mindset. That mindset, you look at it, for 1,000 years it has continued, and it doesn't matter who, Hindu ruler or even Indian Muslim ruler, adopts the exact same ostrich mindset. This should be a lesson to all of us, but we never learned the lesson at Doklam. If we'd learned the lessons at Doklam, then this could have been avoided. We did not. Even the media management lessons weren't learned. Now, for somebody who calls himself a master communicator, you'd think that he'd at least have the basic megalomania skills to master strategic communications. Not even that. Because if you remember, in Doklam, not one news anchor or TV anchor was willing to commit to maps. I corrected this thing by immediately starting to study about satellite mapping and how to pick up things and whatever. The government and the media cell did not. What does that tell you about the government? To this day, our satellites aren't allowed to focus on Indian territory. Now, satellites cover hundreds of square kilometers. But how are you going to exactly map only Chinese territory on a satellite photo shot and not Indian territory on it? So, our commanders don't even have access to satellite imagery in that sense. So they don't even know where their own troops are. And our problem is, we could provide all of this, but again, if we provide that, tomorrow it's the easiest thing for these people, because they love scapegoats. They're so incompetent, they thrive on scapegoats. When they don't want to blame their own incompetence, they say, oh, this guy's a spy. So they'll immediately catch you and say, how do you have pictures of Indian territory? So we don't take photo shots of Indian territory at all. And we don't publish those photo shots at all. We only map Chinese territory, and for good reason. We look at Indian territory, but we never get a printout or anything like that, because it just isn't worth it. Because these people aren't interested in fixing their problems. They're more interested in PR and scapegoating.
Well, all I can say is that these things do add up, and something big might happen in the days and weeks to come. But very somber thoughts there, and something to think about. India needs to change its game, but then their players have to change. And there has been a imminent shake-up of the cabinet, although under the Modi dispensation, I kind of doubt if another set of new players, even if they are inducted in, can bring about any change, because the power appears to be concentrated in the PMO. And we'll see how it goes. Thank you very much, Abhijit, and as always, a pleasure to have you. If you want to add something, please go ahead. Otherwise, we can bring this to a close now.
Yes, I just wanted to add, please don't fall for propaganda against firecrackers. Please burst lots of firecrackers. It's the Hindu thing to do. All the pollution comes from crop burning in Punjab and Haryana, not from firecrackers. Support families in Shivakashi, burst lots of firecrackers. And if for nothing else, just to make Librandus go crazy. Thank you. Joy Ma Kali, Joy Ma Durga, and Joy Ma everything to you guys.
Har Har Mahadev. Thank you very much.